the civilization of man came to an end and humanity declined. Sea monsters ruled the planet. We start the story with Leto, a young child telling her brother Bota to look into the vast horizon. It is there he sees a shadowy figure standing on the water. Shaken with fear, he screams, "It's a sea monster!" Leto jumps in a boat and speeds off towards it, thinking her long-lost father has finally returned. Her brother shouts at her to come back and dives in right after her, as he knows that where their dad had gone, there is no coming back. At the sound of the splash, he awakens the creatures of the deep who seek only to devour flesh. He swims for his life. Upon reaching the surface, he tells his sister they need to get out of the water immediately. He then speedily leads her back to the dry land ruins they had left. They went as fast as they could, climbing higher and higher to get away from the dangers of the deep. But then the sea monsters attacked. It was unsuccessful, as Bota narrowly dodged at the last minute. They are then surrounded by these terrible beasts, circling them as sharks surround their prey. They attack the structure the kids seek refuge on, shaking them to the core. It is then Bota's life flashes before his eyes as he sees a vision of his father saying he would protect them both with his life, and then to his father's last words, "Take care of Lita for me." Bota then returns to his senses, drawing his weapon with this new sense of conviction in his heart. His dad gave his life for them, so why should they give up so easily? But then two monsters attack from behind, destroying the structure completely and knocking them into the water. They scream for their life, barely surviving the attack. They manage to get themselves on a broken piece of boat. With a sigh of relief, they wonder to themselves, what now? Only to turn around to find the monsters crawling closer and closer to them. With nothing else to do and despair in their eyes, they make one last shout for help. A spear hits the beasts. It's the shadowy figure they saw on the horizon. We then go back into the past. As the sea level rose, the continents were engulfed one by one. The civilizations of men were destroyed, but marine life flourished. We are reintroduced to Bota and his dad, searching the sea floor for scraps. They happen to discover the ruins of a convenience store. Hoping for tin food, they begin to search. Lo and behold, they stumble on an aisle filled with food. They proceed to pack everything they can into a shopping cart and make their way up to the surface. Bota's father pulls a zipper, which unleashes a ton of air, shooting them up to the surface. They climb onto the boat. There, they are met with the shout of a young Lita standing at the lookout. The dad asks if she spots anything interesting, and she says no, and slides down to meet them. The father comments that no birds are being sighted, which means they are far away from the land. Bota asks if he really thinks anyone else is alive out there, or if everyone is in heaven, like Mom Lita asks. The dad gives them hope, as he is sure there must be others out there. He tells them the ocean is just so big, that's why they haven't met anyone. He reassures them that until that happens, he will protect them both with his life. Eventually, the sun sets and the alarm bells start to ring. Bota comments that this is the moment their dad has always been cautious of. He tells them to run. To the base of the ship, they dash towards the opening. The dad peeks at the horizon with fear in his eyes as he closes the opening. The sun went down the glistening sky as the night approached. The whole family is curled up in a corner, shaking with fear as the clocks tick in the background. Feeling scared, Lita asks if she can hug her pet fish, and they all tell her to shake. Immediately, the boat starts rumbling. They hold each other tighter as they think to themselves, it's here. The monsters approach the boat. The monsters attack. Bota is stricken with fear, begging the beasts to leave. His father holds him and comforts him, reassuring him that everything is going to be all right. They'll just hit the boat a few times and then leave. The whole ship begins to shake. They hold each other tighter. He didn't let them go until the monsters were gone. Bota found comfort in his father's protection. When the monster left, he put them to bed. Bota asks him if there were a lot of sea monsters where he lived in the past. He tells him, since they lived in the water, they were everywhere, but back then, they also had harpoonists. Harpoonists were warriors who fought sea monsters to protect their towns. He mentioned that he was a harpoonist too, and the mark on his arm was their symbol. The kids fell asleep as he was telling the story. It's now a new day. Everyone wakes up to find a huge mess on the deck of the ship, as the ship was ravaged by monsters the night before. Their father reminds them that even though the deck is a mess, they should count themselves lucky, as they are all safe. Bota points to the ship's edge, where a huge chunk is missing. His father responds that it just means we have a few weeks of repair to do. Lita then brings their attention to some birds in the distance, which hopefully signifies that dry land is nearby. They start sailing towards them. It's then they see the dry land. It seems to be the top floor of a skyscraper, a building island they call it. They should turn the boat around and escape. Bota asks if he's going to fight them, but he tells him it all depends on if they are good or bad people. He dives into the water and swims towards the island. Upon arriving at the island, he shouts to see if anyone is there, hoping for a response. Unfortunately, there is no reply. Determined to explore further, he makes his way upstairs and is met with a horrifying sight, the lifeless bodies of a whole family. The scene cuts back to the kids on the boat, anxiously hoping to encounter friendly people after being isolated for so long. Suddenly, Bota hears splashing in the water and spots a figure that appears to be in need of help. Meanwhile, their dad continues to search the area for any valuable items and stumbles upon a mysterious green box containing explosives. As he investigates further, he notices a massive hole in the wall, indicating an external attack. Suddenly, he hears a loud shout from Lita and immediately dives into action to find out what's wrong. The kids inform him that someone is in the water and needs their help. Looking out, he sees the mysterious figure, but his fear takes over as he realizes it's not a person. The figure disappears underwater, and a large shadow emerges from below. Sensing the imminent danger, he rushes to his kids and holds them tightly. A gigantic creature breaches the ocean, devouring the ship with its mouth. Trembling in fear, they desperately cling to a piece of debris, staring into the creature's humanoid eyes. The monster strikes the ship, causing them to fall into the water. After a few minutes, they find themselves back at the remote building they had discovered earlier. The father holds his kids close, checking to make sure they are okay. Bota appears exhausted, but still breathing, while Lita is unconscious from the stress. Worried for her well-being, they shake her awake, and she regains consciousness. Relieved that both kids are fine, the father's joy is short-lived as he notices his own injury, a steel rod piercing through him. Assuring Bota that he is okay, he emphasizes the need to escape as the monster is still lurking. He instructs Bota to take Lita and run for safety, promising to follow closely behind. Bota dutifully obeys his father's command and leads Lita to higher ground. Meanwhile, the father is left alone, struggling to remove the steel from his body. The pain causes him to let out a piercing scream. Suddenly, he notices something peculiar. A monstrous creature is slowly making its way towards him, its eyes meeting his own. However, there is something strange about the creature's skin. It burns upon contact with sunlight. As it draws nearer, the creature becomes fixated on the steel embedded in the father's body. In response, the father reaches for his sword. Surprisingly, the monster turns away, its gaze shifting towards Bota and Lita. It grins wickedly and chases after them, prompting the father to shout in panic, urging them to run.
Hey, I'm Speed. Not that Speed, but today I'll be doing a manhwa recap of a really cool manhwa I found called Leviathan. I think it's really good, so I'm gonna do like a recap with a little spice to it. I call it cinematic recaps, so it will have sound effects and stuff. But I'm new to this. Let me know in the comments what I can do to improve, but I hope you enjoy it. This is just kind of a little teaser.